Welcome to It's Family Business, the podcast. Join the Burgess family at our dinner table, where we explore the power of connection through stories, laughter, and lessons from life and business. Together, we'll reform the way we think about relationships, success, and growth. Grab a seat and join the conversation.
This podcast is brought to you by Pilates Reformers Australia, your all-in-one solution for Pilates and wellness. If you're looking to invest in commercial or home Pilates equipment, you need to speak to the experts in Pilates. Visit our website at pilatesreformersaustralia.com.au or check us out on social media.
Carla Mullins is a true pioneer in the movement and wellness industry. Her journey began in 2002 when she left a law career to pursue her passion for movement and education. Over the past 20 years, Carla has built a multidisciplinary empire, founding Makarlu, Body Organics Studio, and Body Organics Education. Now working alongside her husband Michael, Carla joins us to share her inspiring story and the lessons learned from 2 decades in business, ensuring every member of her fractious family finds their own unique place in the family business. Carla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's kind of exciting to be here.
Carla, how about you let everybody know where you're located and what your business is?
My business is Body Organics and Makarlu and Body Organics Education. So there's 3 businesses, but they're all run from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. So.
The sunny state. Except for today when it's going to rain for you, is it? So when did you start your business, Carla?
2002, I think it was, around then. It's sort of an official date. There's that setup date and then there's the official date. So 2002, and it started as Pilates and healing.
Oh.
So I had Pilates and I had a number of practitioners, some of whom are still with us.
Lovely.
Still working with us 24 years later. And the business company name was always called Body Organics. And I noticed in around 2008, 2009, I started to expand beyond just Pilates. So I started to add Coraline and Gyrotonic into my work. But I also noticed that everybody was starting to use the name Pilates. So even in 2009, it was starting to become a bit confusing for people.
Yep.
So I ended up changing it just to Body Organics, and that's been our trading name and business ever since.
Lovely. Now, your husband Michael works with you in the business. When did he come on board and what's his role?
Yeah, it's great.
You wouldn't be without him.
Some days, yeah. 2012 he joined. So he had been working as a general manager and marketing specialist in private.
And what made him come on board with you?
He was offered a redundancy and he went, I could come and boss Carla around.
I'm sure that went down well.
Great. So he took the redundancy and then he joined in 2012, and it took him a little while to find his groove, bossing thousands of people around as a general manager, and then coming into Pilates and health work was a completely different thing for him. And it took him a while because these people aren't interested in money. And I'm like, yes, I know, darling. They still need to make money, but how you work with people in this industry was very different to what it was used to, and the motivations and the focus and the interest was different. So he got into the groove, and now all of these years later, he has his role and I have my role. And
so he has a marketing role within within the 3 businesses. Is that what he does?
He does the marketing. I've now allowed him to take over the accounts, which is
You've given permission. I like it.
Just passed it on. The only problem was that before that, our finances had been very separate, and all of a sudden, and he didn't know what my credit card was, and I completely controlled my finances. And then he started looking after the accounts, and he goes, "You spend that much on your hair?" And I'm like going,
"Don't ask,
walk
don't
away,
talk,
or walk away."
Don't criticise that expense.
It's essential. And it wasn't because it was related. He just could see my account. He takes over a lot of the marketing. I do marketing for my sections. So what sort of happened is initially we had our Pilates business and our allied health practitioners, and that was what we did. And around 2013, 2014, I started to be more serious about my educational work, so starting to deliver courses and started to develop that stream of the business, which then that became Body Organics Education, which has grown exponentially over the years, and that has become my area of responsibility.
Okay. Yep.
He has then he developed a different part of the business, and that was the manufacture and production
of the Makarlu.
Of specific products, the Makarlu range of products. And he started working on that from around 2015, and he's responsible for that sort of part of the work. And so production and marketing of that and managing intellectual properties for that is his stuff. Education, teaching Pilates, working with Pilates teachers, that's my ball game.
Okay, right.
Interior decorating.
So you've probably got two different empires or divisions of the business that you are both working on to help that work. So what do you think then the key to the success of you working together is, considering you've got two different divisions that you're kind of working through?
Don't step on each other's toes. He's a bad dancer, so he regularly steps on my toes. But we really have a very separate place. He will consult with me about the product, and we develop ideas and discuss about that sort of stuff. And he will look at things that I'm doing in education, but it's really my job to create that vision, and it's his job to create his vision. He has his office in a completely different building and suburb, and I have my office in a completely different building and suburb.
Right.
And
never the two shall meet. So when you get home, is that when the two divisions meet together? Like, how do you collaborate together?
Sometimes, and it's a really challenging thing, because sometimes you've got to say, no, we can't keep talking about business. And that's a hard thing, because sometimes you do have to meet and talk, and it's finding that balance.
So do you schedule times when the two of you would meet to discuss business, or it's just when we think about it, we're going to have business talks?
Sometimes it's better if it's scheduled, but it doesn't always work, because I'm very punctual and Michael is not. And,
right.
And also things go wrong. They go wrong, and you just think you've got something sorted. And for me, I'm the person that has to teach if someone's sick, or I'm the person who's running courses. So I can't change my schedule as much. I'm not as flexible. I'm responding to people. And so that can sometimes go a little bit haywire.
Astray, yeah. So what happens when the two of you encounter conflict in the business? You've got two different ideas maybe, or two different opinions about how something should happen. How do you resolve that conflict? Not sleeping in separate bedrooms though, okay?
In general, we kind of know each other's wheelhouse.
What do you mean by that?
He knows that his area of expertise is manufacturing and finding products and things like that. And so he's very much the form, okay? And I'm very much I look at something and I go, I can do that. And he goes, what do you mean you could do that with it? And I said, that product. And he goes, I was thinking of using that for feet. And I'm saying, no, that's not for feet, darling. That's for, I'd be using that for this, and this, and this. And then you could see he's like, and so he knows that my area of expertise is exploring that sort of ideas. Probably the two things that we sort of recognise in each other is he sees me as the accelerator and he is the brake.
Yes.
So I'm the person who's probably looking at new things, thinking about new ideas, and he'll be going, hold it, let's finish this project, let's get this project. You're probably nodding at me right now going, yes, that sounds like another relationship I know.
Yes, it is. Yes, very much so. Yeah. But I think you need those two because you complement each other. One to sort of keep the ideas coming and flowing to make sure that you stay new and fresh in the market. And the other one that kind of can assess it and think, okay, well, yes, that's a great idea, but we just have to finish this one project first and see that to completion so that it can actually hit the market and do well in its own right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very nice way of saying it.
Only because I'm the break.
Yeah, I know you would be the break.
No. So what do you think his contribution to the business, how that has elevated your business?
Michael is much more focused on profit. And I always say to him, oh, it's such a bourgeois concept. But he is far more focused on how to monetize things, and he is much clearer in the marketing and strategies about diversification and understanding different revenue streams and creating that. And so Michael brings much more of that very long-term business planning process.
Yep, the business strategies and how that's going to be implemented, yep.
And I'm probably better at identifying trends.
Yep.
So as Michael and probably a few other people have said, if you're interested in something, it'll be a trend in 10 years' time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm an early adopter of technology, and at first he'd go, what are you doing? So in 2005, I was already looking at online booking systems and diary systems, and they weren't really available then. So I had a little system made for me. And then in 2011, I transferred all my accounts over to Xero so that it was a much better thing. No one had heard of Xero, and it was a really different thing. And he's like going, are you sure? And now it's like, yeah, it's one of your better ideas, Carla. But it's sort of
you're not afraid to venture into fields where nobody has trod before, basically. So,
yes. Sometimes it would be good to have a landmine expert with me because it can get messy.
So things can blow up along the way. But no, that's good. So what do you do when one of the divisions has a negative reviews or bad customer service experience or something along those sort of lines happen? So in Michael's division, he might get a negative feedback from a customer or a bad Google review or product review. And similarly in your side, maybe a client, not that ever happens, but a client may not, appreciate the work that you've done with them. They might be a new client. They're like, no, Pilates isn't for me. How do the two of you navigate, or you just don't tell each other about the negative things that happen?
I know we do talk about the negative, and probably one of our strengths is that we tackle that head on. So Michael's attitude is if something's gone wrong with a product and someone rings up and says, this didn't work or this is not working, he goes, I'll send you a new one. There's no discussion or debate. It says, acknowledge it, fix it, move it on. For me, with the education stuff, for instance, it's taken a long time. So some people, when I first started teaching, it took me a long time to refine my teaching style, and I had to develop that. I was learning, and I knew that. And when people go, oh, I don't like this, or this wasn't right, okay, that's fine. It's not right for you. But do you acknowledge that I put the time and effort into this, and do you acknowledge that you feel like you've gotten some knowledge out of this? And generally people go, yeah. And every year we review our education product and delivery. So I have course providers that I work with, and students have said, this is not working, or we want this and there. And I have a think about that process. And then it takes about 6 months where we look at different ways and systems and we change them.
Yeah, good.
Not for the sake of changing them, but we go, okay, yeah, that's not working. Well, I thought would be working for someone. So, for instance, we deliver a certification program for Pilates teachers, and we have online content and we have written content, and we have very detailed manuals and we have very detailed material. But students would say, oh, I just need to know in advance how much time each video was or how much time I need to allocate to this amount of work this week, each week in my course. So we completely restructured the course and created new diary planners for students as part of that process and their course expectations. And the students and the course providers go, this is fantastic. And I then, I showed the students that had raised the issues or how they were muddled and they went, yes, this is what we wanted.
So you're basically using those negative information, it's not that it's negative, but information that's not in a positive, wonderful light to make your systems and processes better, to improve the business functionality. Basically, that's what you're using it for.
Yeah. It's only a mistake if you do it twice.
Yeah. You're using it as a learning process. Nice. Very
exactly.
Good.
And that's part of the process. I mean, if you're coming from Pilates, your approach is always that you're evolving and you're learning and you're reflecting on that experience that you've just had. And what does that teach you? And how does that change you for the next time you do that or your next time you teach that? Reflection, whether you be a Pilates mover, a Pilates teacher or a Pilates business owner, is actually part of what allows you to evolve and change.
Definitely, yeah. And
respond.
Yeah, very true. Not just external reflection, but internal reflection, both.
Very important, very important.
Very true. So you were saying that you started your business back in 2002 and you had some non-family members that you had hired, and obviously now with the business the way that it is, you obviously have further people that you've hired along the way. What qualities do you look for in people that are non-family members when you go to hire somebody?
The capacity to learn. So that's actually a really important thing. Sometimes I see people come in and they have all the qualifications and pieces of paper but they actually don't have that ability to learn something new or to adapt to the situation. And so they create these barriers or arrogance that actually undermine the rest of the team. They create hierarchies. So I'm not very interested in this person has this qualification and therefore they're so much more important. I really don't like that sort of structure. I want somebody who cares. That's probably more than anything else. And I say cares about people.
What about caring about what they produce? So, yes, they have to care about people because they're looking after those people, but, the quality that they put into that work that they give you, do they need to care about that as well? Is that important to you?
Oh, that goes without saying, and I feel like that's all part of, I agree. I have come across people who don't care and they don't reflect and they don't take lessons. You can give them feedback and they'll go, oh, you're just bullying me. And I'm like going, no, we're talking about how this works. And they have been my lessons as well. I will generally spend a bit of time talking to somebody before I employ them. And especially if they're a Pilates teacher, I'll get them to teach some people.
Yep.
Because after all of these years, you can tell a lot about the way people interact and they talk and they do things. And I've got it wrong on some occasions.
Yes.
But I've had a lot of teachers with me for at least 8 to 10 years. So I'm probably doing something right there. We try to be open about things when there's a problem as well. So now and again I get grumpy.
Everybody does. It's the end of the year. We're tired.
All I like to say is that if you were as perfect as me, I wouldn't have to be as grumpy.
If you could do it the way I do it, we'd be fine.
So it's trying to make sure that there's a sense of humour and a lightness.
Yes, true.
I really try to allow people the freedom to do what they need to do. Michael, my husband, is much better at attending to the micro detail. And I would say that I'm probably more free-flowing and allow people to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I expect them to do the same for me.
Yep. Very true.
So when it comes to hiring people and getting the people that I like, I try and follow, it's the vibe attitude. You can you spend some time chatting with them, and I try not to be anything other than who I am in the interview. So if I have to wear shoes. It may not go down well, but
It is a WHS issue, but we'll forget about that.
I know, yeah, but if we're sitting down having a chat in the office, I might just take my shoes off and have
That's
a chat over a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I also live in Queensland. Shoes are not always on.
That is true, not mandatory up there.
Sit down and have a coffee and
Talk it through.
see how it feels.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very good. It's very true, actually, that when you, especially in the Pilates world, if you're going to hire an instructor, it's always good to see how they teach somebody else and how they interact with that person, a different client, as opposed to being you. I mean, I've had instructors that I've made them teach me just so that I can see how they're going to interact with me, how they're interacting with the body. It's a good way to assess if they've got the skills that you need in the culture and the environment that you're trying to create in your studio.
Exactly. And also if you're hiring a receptionist or someone like that, you also want to see how they talk to people and how they interact with people, because at times you might have people who are in pain or who might be a bit grumpy, and you have to have the skills to put those people at ease.
Yeah, very true. So you've got a son who's 15 years old. How do you think having children and running a business, do you think that running the business impacted him at all? Does he have his own little division in the business?
In some ways, yes. He's had some advantages from that.
Yep.
In the sense that I've got the flexibility and Michael has the flexibility to do things for him through the day. If we have to go and see a performance at school or whatever, we can just
the award ceremony.
It's never a problem. Yes. At times we don't have the flexibility and we have to work long hours. I probably knew that it had some impact on him when he was and how he's been dragged around to different places, because in 2015 or 14, when Michael broke his pelvis, he had a bicycle accident and he broke his pelvis and his sacrum in 6 different places, and he was in hospital. Max was probably about 4 or 5 at the time, and there was an X-ray up on the wall and the doctor was standing there, and Max goes, wow, Dad, that acetabulum looks weird. And the doctor and the orthopedic surgeon looks down at this 4-year-old and he goes, what did you say? The acetabulum. And he points to it and he goes, you can see it there and you can see how the femur's not sitting. And the doctor's like, going, okay.
And you're like, that's my son. Well done.
Well done. Yeah. And I realised that maybe he'd probably been to a few too many courses or heard the discussions at the table or watched me writing books or things. But another thing's like he's had adventures as a result. So we've had to go to different countries for the product and go to trade shows. And in 2019, he went to Las Vegas.
Ooh, exciting.
And he, I think he must have been about 8 or 9 at the time, had a little bow tie and a suit, and he's standing there at the...
On the stand?
On the stand.
Oh, that's a real family affair.
Yeah. And he's charming people and he's like going, come on, let me show you.
I can just imagine him doing that.
He was a winner.
Yeah, nice, very good. So does he have a role in the business currently at 15?
Mowing the lawns. He is starting to help on some things. He would like to have a career in esports, but, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Look, I think he's learnt a lot from having parents have their own business. And I'll be honest, my parents had their own businesses and my grandparents had their own businesses. So I come from small business owners. So you sort of learn to budget and, know that things go back and forward and you have to do long hours from that process. And I think he has learnt that.
Mm-hmm. So you've sort of passed on your generational knowledge from small businesses from all of your grandparents' parents, now and you'll pass that on to Max as well.
Probably, yes.
Which is not a bad thing though, I think. Like it means that he'll have a different skill set to other children his own age because of that adventure.
I think so. I can see it in the way he's very confident and able to talk to people. Yep. I remember somebody he was walking along the street and talking to a complete stranger when he was with us, and this gentleman looked at him and said, Max, you'll never know a stranger. And I thought, That's a really nice compliment to say.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, yeah.
But he's learned to have to do that. He's also learned, I think, how hard it is to actually work. I think that's a really hard thing for people to understand, is that to run a business, you actually have to make a lot of sacrifice.
And the family has to make a lot of sacrifice.
Exactly.
Yep.
And at times your family gets benefits as well, but it is part of a vocation, is running that. And you also have this balance of really being ethical and supportive of your employees, but also at the same time being ethical and supportive of yourself and your family.
Yeah,
and
very
that's
true.
a real challenge.
It is. It's a big balance to manage, yes.
And I also think the other thing, and I can see that in Max, is when you own your own business, you actually have to make do. You have to find solutions. And I find that a really interesting observation when you see people who are not from a private practice, personal business sort of experience. I was studying and I had to do placements in hospitals, and I would just think, oh, well, I'll do that. And someone goes, no, you don't do that. I just, what do you mean? I'm just tying up the rubbish bag and putting it in the bin. And they go, no, that's the cleaner's job. Or you're like going,
everyone's got their specific division, stay in it.
Yeah, there's divisions. And there was also things like, I came up with some solutions and they said, no, we don't do that. And I said, well, who does? I'll talk to them because it's a solution for this patient. And we're looking at the best patient outcome. They're going, you have to stay in your own box. That's somebody else's job. And I'm saying, well, how do you make sure that other person's making sure that they're on the thing, and how do we all work together? How do we find a solution? And I feel like when you're working in your own business, you really do have to find solutions. You have to make do, and and that's how we came up with products.
Yeah.
We actually had to make do and find solutions to a problem.
Yep, very true.
And could say, oh, that's somebody else's problem. Let's push that to a side.
Because you're the only one that has the problem, so you have to solve it, pretty much.
Yeah, or you can see many people have that problem.
In the business, in your business, you have the problem, so you have to solve it. You can't delegate it to somebody else, pretty much.
And you can have experts come in, and we have had this done. We paid experts to come in, but sometimes they're actually telling you stuff you already know.
But that's actually a good thing, because it reaffirms that what you're doing is the right thing, like you're on the right track.
Exactly. But at the same time, then you can turn around and they go, oh, well, you do this, this, and this. And you're like going, so I know all of this, you're telling me to do this, and now it comes back to me. I was wanting you to do it for me. Like, can't you just do that? I was hoping to get out of that extra job.
Yeah. I don't want to add to my list. I want to make my list smaller.
But then again, it taught me that I had to also learn in running my own businesses to be much clearer in my expectations and my goals. And that was an interesting challenge as well, and communicating that to others.
Yeah.
Like when you were contracting people and saying, well, I need this done, this done, this done, and they'd go, oh, okay.
Yeah, true.
And you would get a better result.
That's right, because you were more specific about what you wanted as the outcome for the contract that you were giving them.
Yeah, yes. And because I have a legal background, I was probably too specific in some cases.
I don't think you can ever be too specific about things when it comes to contractors or dealing with employees or even with family members in the business. I don't think you can ever be too specific, because if you're not, then it leaves those grey areas where things end up coming back to you and you have to do it yourself because you should have done it the first time.
The sludge areas.
Yeah. All right. So if you were to offer people one takeaway that you have learnt from being in business with your family, for example, if someone said to you, oh, I'm thinking of going to business with my husband, what would be one piece of advice that you would give them?
Have a plan B. Okay, well, part of that is, and I'm serious about that, is when you set up a business, there's going to be a period of time where you have no income. Honestly, unless you've made some genius thing and from day one you've got an income. If there are two people in that family and this is your only source of income, there's going to be a lot of financial tension in that arrangement. So Michael joined me after 10 years.
Yep.
So there was already a revenue stream, and I'd done a lot of hard yards to get there. So first of all, make sure at least one of you has income from another source while you're getting yourself going. And it will be hard that first 5 years as you are working out what works, what doesn't work, and getting your income stream clear is really important. Secondly is always put aside money, especially if you're a woman.
Yes. know where the money is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a runaway fund. Okay.
Oh.
And it's not that I'm planning on to, but it's like an amount of money aside that is not linked to the business. But if there is a disaster, so if your partner drops dead or your husband drops dead, what people don't realise that in the business is that if they're a co-signatory on the account, those accounts might be frozen.
They are frozen, yes. That is true.
And you're trying to run a business, and yes, it'll take you a little bit of time getting all of that sorted, but having that money set aside there means that you can
continue to operate while you sort all those other bits and pieces out. Yes.
Exactly. And
really good piece of advice, Carla.
3 to 6 months. Yeah. It's 3 to 6 months of money set aside so that if that's happened, you've got that background.
So you have that money set aside in your name, and then Michael also has a set amount of money set aside in his name?
I don't know what Michael does, but I have mine set aside.
He can do whatever he wants if he were to die.
I got around, he can deal with the problems.
All right, so you're set, so no matter what happens, you're good to go.
Yep.
But I think that's a really good piece of advice. Yeah, very much so, because a lot of women don't actually know a lot about the finances when it comes to a business. They might let the accountant do it, or their husband do it, or their partner. But yeah, if they have their own money set aside so that if something catastrophic happens, they can still access funds. That's a really important point. I like it.
And investing that as well, working with a good investor. So
that money continues to grow. Yeah, works for you.
In 2000, I'd been running a business, I'd been investing. I have always put money aside in superannuation, and we have our own superannuation fund, self-managed superannuation fund.
Yep.
So we've always put money, even if it's hard. It means, I've got grey hair now. I don't bother getting my hair done. But sometimes you work out what expectations are. But also, say, for instance, I put out a certain amount. So in 2007, I was able to buy one of my business premises.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I still have a small mortgage on that, but I'm at least investing in that thing.
Yeah.
And then we always put money into the super fund, and we allocate that money over time and so in 2020 we were able to buy very nice commercial premises with our super fund, stopped having to pay rent on a different place, and we were paying a lot of rent.
Yeah.
And now of course we're paying rent to our super fund, but it's at least going towards us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is about being clear that you're in business to provide you with financial security and resources so that you're not going to live in poverty when you retire, because I do want to retire one day.
Yeah, you're preparing for your future. Yeah.
Yeah, you're preparing for your future while still being present and enjoying what your present can do. It's about getting your financial structures organised when you first start. You might not get it right when you first start your business, but once you've been in business for about 3 or 4 years, you've got an idea of what your cash flows are and your lifestyle and things like that. And how do you manage that and put that money aside? Talk to a good financial advisor, or set up a good legal structure to allow you to start putting money away in your super fund. The number of people, and particularly women, who I hear, oh no, I haven't really thought about my superannuation. I'm like going, so when are you going to start thinking about that?
Yeah, very true. It's an important part, very much so, because time goes by so quickly, and you can just blink and, 10 years have gone past and you haven't done anything, and you're like, whoa.
Oh, and it's compounding. And like I hear a lot of Pilates teachers who work as contractors, and they say, oh, superannuation, don't worry about it. Just take the money as a contractor. You don't need to worry about superannuation. And I'm like going, well, actually, legally you're supposed to worry about it.
Yes.
And legally the business is supposed to do that.
Yes.
But also you should be worrying about that. I would say having that and having shares, I know that COVID wasn't kind to us. It created a really big problem for us financially.
For a lot of people, not just for you guys, I'm sure. So, but I suppose also when you try to diversify your funds, stock market, property, cash reserves, all that sort of stuff, when something like COVID or the stock market crashes or the world goes into chaos, all of those things get affected. So trying to foolproof those things at the same time.
But those things are also there because there will be times that your business will have problems.
Yes.
And like for COVID,
we had to shut down for months on end.
Many small businesses, we had to borrow money that we're paying off now.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
During COVID. And I mean, that was only 4 years ago. Like, let's face it, we're
still recovering from that. Yes. Yeah. Very true.
And I remember speaking to a financial advisor at the time. She said, in 2017, she said, you need to have your business structured so that you have 6 months worth of money set aside, not just in your runaway fund, because there might be a period of time where you might not be able to trade or something goes wrong. So you need to have that ready to go there. So
yeah, very true.
Which sounds ridiculous, but I guess 20 odd years later, I'm still in business.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Very good advice, Carla. I hope everybody that was listening will take that on board. Make sure you've got a plan B and make sure your finances are good and you've got your runaway fund. I think it's excellent.
Well, that's actually, I'll be honest, that's actually what my nonna told me.
Very smart woman before her time, very much so.
Yeah, she always said, and my nana was the same. I mean, she was widowed during the Great Depression with small kids. And there were no pensions, there was no government support. She had to make ends meet, and for the rest of her life, she always had that little fund to support herself somehow. That's the other thing I'd say. If you're looking for an easy way, don't start your own business.
Very true. Not easy. Making money that way is not easy. Yeah. Very true. Carla, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's been a wonderful conversation. If anybody would like to get in contact with you, how would they do so?
Probably the best one to do is info, I-N-F-O, at bodyorganicseducation.com.
Someone will get back to you and ask you lots of questions and you'll be able to answer them about their runaway fund that they need to put into play. No.
You might laugh, but can I tell you, when I spoke to some of my clients, and I have a lot of clients and ladies in their 60s and their 70s go, oh, yes, darling. And like they all go, oh, yeah.
I know. I think it's a great idea. I just love how you call it the Runaway Club. I just think that's a fantastic name.
You just never know. And the ladies were telling me about all their hiding spots. My favourite of their hiding spots was to wrap it up in alfoil and put it in the back of the freezer because no one was going to touch it.
Well, we won't have to air that because it will go into people's freezers. But not a bad way to stash money, though. No one's going to look there. That's a great idea. Carla, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to have any more information about Carla and her Body Organics or Body Organics Education or the Makarlu, feel free to contact Carla on info@bodyorganicseducation.com. Thank you, Carla, for joining us. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your day up there in Brisbane, and we look forward to seeing everybody on the podcast in the next episode.